Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hello and welcome, folks. You're back to our latest Thursday edition of Gaelic Lives, and a special edition. We're joined by Darren Hughes, a man who has played 206 times for Monaghan at senior level. As we said off air, it sort of scared him, but he's played for Monaghan seniors basically half of his life, and he has stepped away from inter-county football during the week. Darren, thanks a million for jumping out of a busy family, farming, Scottstown environment to take a few minutes to chill out on what has happened. I suppose, what's the last few days been like? Because I'm sure it's been bedlam.
It's been hectic enough there on the phone now. It wouldn't be great on the screen time at the best of times, but yeah, a lot of nice messages and calls and that coming through since Tuesday morning now. So yeah, just hectic enough there now.
And did you pick this week because Scottstown didn't have a game, because it gave you time to think about it, or not?
I suppose there was a wee bit of strategy in it. I knew I was going to pull the pin, I suppose, and I had a chat with Gabriel the week after the Donegal game, and I says, here, I'll not make any drastic decisions yet, but I'll chat in due course. And then just as the weeks went on there, I just knew myself that I wanted to put it to bed, just to suppose fully concentrate on the club then, that it wasn't something that was involving conversation and that. So we had a game Sunday past there, and luckily enough we won. If we hadn't won it now, it could have been a different story Monday morning, the conversations I was having. But yeah, so we won it, and I sort of says Monday will be D-Day.
206 game appearances for Monaghan. It's an amazing. Outside of the medals and success and things like that, for that longevity, what do you put it down to? Because it's not as if you're playing for a club who's knocked out of the first round of the championship every year. It's a long season. You had a Sigerson spell as well, and you have your share of injuries. So that length of time, Darren, is amazing.
Yeah, but I was probably lucky enough that I come into a Monaghan team that was on an upward trajectory at the time, that we were starting to get to Ulster finals and get to Croke Park. And as a young fella, and when I was getting minutes early on, you weren't going to pass up that opportunity. And the relative success was just kept rolling as the years went on, and we had a bit of a dip in 11 and 12, and sure, I was still only mid-20s, like, so you hadn't reached your peak essentially. And then sure, Malachy came in 2013, and the next 7 seasons went by in a flash too. So, and then when you hit the 30, you sort of be taking it year on year after that, and plenty of slagging and stuff going on. And the past 3 or 4 years, I was probably saying in the back of the bus, I'll not be back, it'll be my last. But just when each back end come about, I just wasn't ready, or felt I had still enough to offer to hang about for another year.
We'll come to those magical days in Clonus in a while, but rewind back to the very start, Darren. What's your early memories of playing football? Obviously, Scottstown would have been to the fore, but like, what was the sort of influences? Where did you get your love for sport from? Because it seemed, you don't play for that length of time without that sheer desire. Where did that sort of come from?
Probably started off in the local school. Like, wasn't from home here, and then, like, we weren't being pushed to go to football or going and watching football or anything. So probably once I got into the primary school environment, and then started Scottstown under sevens probably as a 6-year-old, sort of probably just spiraled from there. And I remember my first Monaghan championship game against Donegal and Ballybuffet, and it was in '85 when they won. And it was Monaghan's first big win in Ulster in a long time, and there was a lot of hype around that at the time. And then lost to Cavan the next day on a wet Clonus in the semi-final, and sort of just I'd been travelling to a lot of Monaghan games with my grandfather, Packy from Emmy Vale, and so that's just sort of all took off from there.
Isn't he's connected to Emmyvale Club with the pitches or something? I remember somebody saying
Yeah, just
involved.
yeah. That's Tully Lane, yeah. So he would have owned the field that Emmyvale football pitch is currently built on at the time.
He didn't put out the transfer forms, no?
No, he didn't. They missed that trick now many moons ago, so they did.
I was telling Dale McKenna, and for a piece I was doing on you during the year, but he mentioned the fact that it was probably under 21 level with the club before you were really successful, or what was it like? Because like you've 9 county medals and a club steeped in history, but growing up for you, was it just not an awful lot of success, or were you
I was sort of in the middle in an age group that the boys all before me would have been successful, and the age group under me would have been successful, but my age group, we actually went from 99 till 2007 without winning anything. It was an under 12s to under 21s that I hadn't won anything with the club, and we were always competing at semi-final and final stages, but ultimately we weren't good enough any year. But we had good players before that, and we're filtering into the senior team, and then after, behind me, there was a serious crop of young players coming, and that's probably where the senior success come from. Like, they were just in their early 20s in 2013. You could see from 2010, 11, 12 on, we started to be more competitive at senior level, and then boys were just coming to peak potential at that stage at club level, and we got over the line in 2013 and pushed on from there.
And around that time, like, Scottstown had went 20 years without a senior championship, so it wasn't as if you were growing up going to finals and county finals, where you touched on seniors. So
there was nothing on, as I say, in the parish now. There's some children have went through their whole primary school careers preparing for county finals. We've been in, I think it's 11 in a row there, and whenever I was growing up, there was none. That went from 93 to 2004 without being in a final, and then there was 2004 to 2011 lost again, and then 13 we won. So it was a barren period for the club, but there was still quality players being produced, and there was a good blend then come 2013 of real senior players, and a good cohort of young fellas coming through.
And as a county minor, there's obviously that story you put on the goalie gloves that day to play in the seniors, but did you play in goals for Monaghan minors?
Yeah, I was goals for the county minors in 2005. So it was just
as your final year as a minor, like.
Yeah, no, it was. I was only a county minor the 1 year, and I probably would have been dropped in the January time. Only there was a goalkeeper shortage at the time, and I've been sort of messing about before and after trainings and goals, and they asked me would I step in for a game, and I did, and I sort of kind of knew if I got the opportunity that I wasn't going to let it pass me by.
Any goalkeeping before that?
A wee bit of soccer and messing about, and I'd have fancied myself a wee bit in goals, but or if I was going through a barren period, I'd fail or not playing for Gaelic teams that have been putting my hand up to get into goals, but no, nothing really consistent.
Begging's safe now. You're retired. His number one.
Yeah, he put the nail in my coffin completely. So he did. Or any thoughts that I had of ever going back into goals?
And then, like, obviously, was Monaghan under 21s your first real avenue into it? Like, I was reading somewhere that's where you came into this sort of.
I was pulled into the under 21s the following year as was actually brought in on the back end as a sub goalkeeper, because I think there was 13 boys on the senior panel at the time, and there was competition. There was the Shamrock Cup every Saturday at that time, and they were struggling to get players, and they were looking just to fill the squad, and I'd been brought in as sub keeper, and I'd been probably that year from 2005 afterwards had a good club period, and then ended up after that we went to Jordanstown, so I was playing a lot of seconds and thirds, fresher football, and was just brought into the under 21s at the time just to probably make up the numbers. But because I had a lot of football under my belt over the back end, I was probably a bit fitter than other boys, and sort of just in challenge matches, and that pushed me way up the ladder and into selection contention out the field, and started wing back out the field for them that year.
Roughly how many how many years of senior football would you had with Scottstown by that stage? Like, you know,
Oh, well, I was only senior from 2006. I played one
yeah.
or two games at the tail end of 2005 maybe, but when I was a minor. But no, it was 2006 before it. I'd played properly for Scotstown seniors. I started a game in it.
You made your debut in the championship 07 in Casement. I'm a
Mhm.
Derry man, obviously beat us,
Yeah.
and Kieran was playing in the minor game, so it was
Mhm.
a big day for the family. You both
Yeah,
going
yeah.
in
It
Casement
was.
that day.
Don't think they were successful in their game as we were. I think they only scored a point that day. So they did.
He made up for it the following year. He tore us apart at Oma in the
Oh
semi-final.
yeah, that game. Yeah, yeah. That was Derry and Ulster semi-final. Probably a game we went in as underdogs and got the grips top of Derry early that day, and we were well ahead near the end, and I got a cameo role for the last few minutes.
And what's your memories? Like, I always remember Tommy Freeman talking about that day he's played Kerry, was at the quarter final, how close you were, and watching it on TV. And you know, what's your sort of memory of that? Because you were very, very close to heading towards the big prize, the biggest prize.
We were, and I suppose I have an abiding memory of it. It was a good touch for years after. I was the one that broke the ball down to Declan O'Sullivan to bring them back into the game with 10 minutes to go. So I have a good, strong cohort of friends that don't belong remind me about that. But yeah, so that was we had Kerry on the ropes that day, and got well ahead of them, maybe 4 or 5 points at one stage, but they pegged us back. They got the goal, and we had chances later on to equalise in that, and just couldn't get level or ahead of them again. And I mean, Tomas O'Shea just run the end line in the last play and fisted it over the bar. And even that day, a couple of the Kerry players at the final whistle, I think they thought it was a draw. Didn't actually realise they'd won it, but we obviously knew it was a gut wrenching defeat to suppose have Kerry on the ropes for so long and not to finish the job.
That was obviously the very early days of the senior career, Darren. But when did you sort of feel as if you were breaking into it as you sort of, I don't know, maybe belong's the wrong word, but just where you really fitted in, where this was something long term for you?
I'd say from 2009 on, so I was under 21 up until 2008, and then from 2009 on, I suppose Banty had sort of made it known to me in the back end of that season that I'd be getting a start early on in the league, and it was probably my jersey to lose. Like, there was no under 21s to keep you. Like, I was always getting on in games in the previous couple of years, league and championship. Like, I'd been in the top 18 players probably, but it says you need to push on now. So I was getting the starting jersey from early in the league that year, and that's when I suppose the consistency come, and bit of confidence from the management that you're getting starting jersey, and it was up to you to go and prove yourself and hold on to it.
And funny, I touched on it earlier on. Like, growing up, what were the sort of idols? Like, who were you looking up to? To, you know, people grew up, they aspire to be somebody. Is there somebody that stood out, or is there somebody you always watched that you felt I want to be that person to grow up, or type thing?
Monaghan weren't that successful, and probably half supporting Tyrone in an All Ireland final in 03 in me madness. But actually, you had Peter Canavan, Graham Garrity would have been someone I would have always have kept an eye on. He had the blonde hair and the fancy boots, and he'd have been someone that you'd have been aspiring that you could play like, because he was going from wing back to full forward in different years. So they were probably two men that you'd have been. The consistency in the performances as a teenager growing up, and Meath and Tyrone were going rightly, and so they'd have been two men that I'd have been keeping a close eye on.
Funny, you're talking about people in different positions. Like, you played in so many positions yourself. Like, trying to select that Gaelic Life All-Star team a couple of years ago, it was great because you had played in that many positions. You could slot in anywhere. It was just so
Might
much
have been any good
variation.
at any of them, though.
Modesty at its best, but Darren, even in terms of Monaghan, because like there was that statistic until last year where only Kerry had been in Division 1 longer than he's, you know, and like he's of 30 clubs, and he's really the stock started to rise. Like, from your point of view, that consistency of being at the top table is evident, but where did that come from? A combination of things, because you went from being Monaghan, who maybe, as you say, were underdogs that day against Derry, to a Monaghan team that nobody really wanted to play.
I could think when you go back and you look at when Banty probably came in 2005, there was a big culture shift in Monaghan football and how the boys were preparing. Like they'd hold their hands up themselves, the boys that were there for the latter years into the 2008, 9, 10, 11 and that, like they wouldn't have been preparing as best possible for National League games or that coming up. And I suppose there was a line through in the sand about like drinking before games and stuff when Banty come in, and it was his way or no way, and if you didn't like it, no matter who you were, you weren't going to be involved. And I think that proved, like, Monaghan got to Croke Park twice that year, and I was only 18. I was a supporter going to support Monaghan then. It was great. Like, you got to a league final and got to play Tyrone in the last 12, I think it was at the time. So I think from then on, because there was no doubt that there was quality players throughout the county, and we got the best players playing for a prolonged period of time, and it coincided with the development squads had probably started around the same time, and we had a good team that got to that Ulster minor team in 08, and a good chunk of them lads come on and played senior football for the next 10, 12 years. So a lot of things fell into place at the right time, and we had damn good footballers over the years too. Maybe boys didn't get the recognition they deserved, and we never brought it into the rhetoric of being a small county and punching above our weight. Like, it was never anything we really spoke about or was never mentioned, because we knew within the group we had a good group of players, and every day we went out, we had a fighting chance if we played well.
Like, I remember that day at Casement. I just remember Banty up and down the line and the fist up, and you really, you were just growing into the game. And ever since that, I just always felt that you were a serious outfit. I just remember it's just one of those things that sticks out in my mind that day, where you think we're in trouble here and this team's on the up. And as you say, that was during that time whenever the mentality was changing. And like, I remember chatting to Martin McElkennan a couple of times. He's obviously would have been heavily involved in the whole conditioning side of the things with you. So it probably all ties into, as you say, just leaving yourself in the best possible condition and position to achieve.
Yeah, there's no no doubt about it. Michael and Marty would have played a big hand in that when he came in 2007. Conditioning wise, it was, trainings were tough. The gym stuff was just starting to come into play, like, and you were doing the extra collective sessions in the gym and that, and there's no doubt it bore fruitions on the field for us that year. Like, a big goal at the start of the year would have been just getting to an Ulster final. And that's, like, when we left Casement Park that day and you'd achieved that goal and was moving on to the next one, then going about how to win an Ulster final. And here ultimately we failed, and we failed again in 10, and thankfully crossed the line eventually then in 2013 for that title.
It's been talked about a lot. We may as well talk about it today, the goalkeeping situation. But Gabriel had said in a statement that Darren Hughes would stand on his head for Monaghan. But I remember asking Marty about that situation, and he just remembers you coming into the room and saying sort of whatever you need type thing. It was a big decision, but I think it was just probably the way you dealt with it. It was whatever you need, lads. Strong mentality.
There was a bit of that too, and then the arrogant side of me might have been coming out a bit too, to get into goals and not be responsible for marking a man, maybe, because I'd have been lining out full back that day. I was probably going to be on Jamie Clark, so it could have been in bigger trouble. But yeah, here it was. It wasn't something that fazed me at the time. And as I say, I probably knew there'd be a bit of media attention with it, and at that age, I was probably only too glad to get it. And here we were lucky enough. Like, we had a poor start that day against Armagh. It took us 15-20 minutes to get into the game. Tommy got a goal, I remember, and we just pushed on from there, and we had a comfortable win in the end up. But like, we had good performances that year against Armagh and Fermanagh, and then here we faltered in the final against Tyrone. Just their experience told in the end, but probably stood the group instead over the years then.
Were they the biggest foe in Ulster? you know, there's the border with these there as well, but sometimes, Darren, the rivalry maybe isn't the next door neighbour, it's the team that you're struggling with, or you have the biggest rivalry with on the pitch, or you have the biggest battles with. Is Tyrone one
Yeah,
of
well,
those
I think
teams?
from obviously I was young coming in. I had nothing. I'd never played Tyrone or anything, but core of our team at that time in 2007 had a couple of under 21 run-ins with Tyrone, and Tyrone had come out on top, and um, so there was a bit of rivalry there, and there's probably more between supporters and that, because we were coming from nowhere, and Tyrone had won 2 All-Irelands pre 2007, so like we had no business saying we were going to compete with them. But here we come up short that day, and it was 2010 was more disappointing, because we had real good momentum after Armagh and Fermanagh victories, and we were steamrolled that day. We knew after 20 minutes, like, we're not winning this game. Tyrone just brought everything they had to the table, so they had, and we couldn't handle them at all.
I'm friendly with Alan Gunn here. He lives in Maharab beside me here, and he always talks about that day in 13, the blue and white. And I remember seeing it on TV as well whenever the Anglo-Celt went up into the sky and Monaghan were champions, and you couldn't see the grass on the pitch in Clones at all. But like, that was an amazing result for you as a group. But it obviously didn't happen in the couple of weeks beforehand. What was the sort of lead into that? Because you went to the top of the tree in Ulster.
Yeah, here I suppose the big thing was you'd plenty of time to prepare. We'd started over the line against Cavan in semi-final. We were up 3 or 4 at one stage, and they got it back, and it was just sticky enough in the last couple of minutes. It could have been it was Rory had caught a ball in the line and took a few too many steps and carried it out, but there wasn't a free give against him. So we always talk about that one, that we were lucky, like, because that would have been a draw game, and they had the momentum at that stage, and you wouldn't know what would happen. But here Malachy is probably, I think it was the week after Donegal played down in their semi-final. He pulled us into a room, and we sat and we watched the whole game, and he just says afterwards, if you don't think you're good enough to beat Donegal after how they played against down there, we're wasting our time here. And we just went out, and we still had 2 weeks to train and prepare, and they were just, everything was methodical in what we were doing, and just everything fell into place. Like, it was just everything that day, like from the minors winning and them coming back from, I think they were 8 or 9 points down with a few minutes to go, and come back against Tyrone and the roar that day, and just everything just was just fell into place nicely.
When did obviously you were talking about Banty had changed the sort of standards and preparation. Malachy comes in, and he's obviously came from a very successful club situation, and I suppose it was time with Ty Holland. I think that was his first team he managed, so he has a bit of a handle on Monaghan. So him coming in changed much, or?
Oh, I did, yeah. He laid the law down pretty quick in certain things. We
in terms of being Ulster contenders,
no, just purely on discipline. We probably lost our way a bit in 11 and 12. We, like, it's on the players. We probably started to do stuff off the field that more often than we should have been doing, and accumulated in a double relegation. So it did, and we had a big changeover of players between 2010 and 2013, and things just weren't going well. Like, we lost awfully in the championship. Backdoor in 11 and Laois in 12, and we'd no momentum. We had, as I say, we had 2 back-to-back relegations, and no championship form worth talking about. So Malachy had been involved in the club scene in Monaghan. He'd been helping in with Latin, and
that's right.
Owen Lennon would have been putting obviously seeing what Malachy could bring to the table, and in fairness to our county board, like, the fully integrate players in the process, taking our opinions on board. Obviously they have the final say, but there was a cohort of players at the time that was led by Owen at the time, that obviously he had dealt with Malachy firsthand, that he would be the best man for this job, and thankfully the county board decided in that manner. Just he come in October or November that year, and just when you'd been chatting to him and planning future, if there was weddings or something that you might have been getting away to previously, it was just no, it's not happening. We're training, and you have to be there. And it was just you realise pretty quick this man means business.
The foundations were down.
When we were
you weren't coming from nowhere at the same time.
No, we weren't coming from nowhere, but we did lose our way, and that was evident by double relegation, and it was disappointing, but it worked in our favour in that year because you got in good shape, you were fit going into the league, and you had a run of games that you could potentially win, and we did, and you just built momentum from there, and you won a league out of it as well. So, just as I say, Malachy got his building blocks down in order early in the year, and we just followed suit.
What do you remember about the 2013 final most of all, if anything? Is there anything that jumps up?
Probably only named the team, and Pádraig Donaghy and Darren Malone were making their first championship starts. The two of them would wing forward, and we thought it was a bit of a left wing one. But
when did you hear that? Actually,
I'd say it was the day of the game. It would have been the day of the game, yeah. So it was, but there were still plenty of people had us backed at 7-1 going into it as well. So the confidence was there. So it was, but we they pulled them left wing calls, and it worked for us on the day. But remember, we went 4-0 up, I think it was, and going real well and missing opportunities, and then they got back to 5-2 at half time, and we were going well. And I was looking, somebody had said one day there that you're still only 4 points up with 10 minutes to go, and if that was in today's game with or without 2 pointers, you'd have been thinking that's not too bad. But it was just a game that we seemed to have all the momentum, and everyone was just working out. All the breaks were falling nicely for us, and just got a couple of points near the end to close it out, 13-7.
Was that the final, or was it 15 that you put the ball into Kieran right away? He's going to score off the first attack.
It was 13.
13 now.
Yeah.
So was the early start a big part of the process?
It was, yeah.
We were all Ireland champions the year before.
Yeah, it was. Don't mind specifically at the time now, but here it would have been to not give them a foothold or in the game, or to give them any momentum, and give us an opportunity to put our front foot forward and let them know that they're in a game and that we have potential to win this. So it would have been something that would have been spoke about.
What was the next couple of days like? Did you
hectic?
No charger for the mobile, and you needed something to multi-cows and all that crack.
Probably working of a BlackBerry or a Nokia or something at the time. There was hadn't an iPhone at that time anyway, I don't think.
Andy used to have one of those stuff. There's a photograph of him with a Nokia stuff in
his
pocket.
Oh, I still have it. 6310. Keeps them in reserve, so he does.
But those couple of days, was it sheer heaven being amongst the
lads? It was here. It coincided with the Monaghan Country Festival, so the whole town was set up with the big lorry and all in the middle of the diamond and that. We'd done a tour of the towns and everything, and sure, when you think about it now, it's madness doing it. But here we hadn't won an Ulster Championship in 25 years. You had 3 weeks before an All-Ireland quarter final, so we took full advantage of it now, and we done the tour of the towns on the Monday and back into training probably on the Tuesday or Wednesday night of that, probably Wednesday at that stage. But here it was a hectic few days now.
And in terms you won it again 2 years later, and how do you compare both ones?
The second one was sweet because it was a completely different game. We didn't play. We'd lost them in 14. They come back at us in 14, and there was another game that we knew pretty early we're not at the races here. We got a goal. Christine McGuinness got a goal in the middle of the second half to sort of drag us back into it on the scoreboard. We weren't at it. We're seeking revenge, and they set the tone early. And
it's very difficult to flick the switch in the middle of the
it was you get them feelings on the pitch, and you're like, we're struggling here. We're just not getting away with it as we'd like. And here you'd prepared as well as the year before, but just on the day, just had no answer to them. So we then probably struggled with a few more injuries that year, and boys coming into it with injuries, but it was no excuse on the day. Like, we were beaten by the better team. And then 15 again, it was a poor game to watch now, I'd say. Low scoring, two defensive teams, and we had got ahead midway through the second. I don't think we scored for the last 15, 20 minutes of that game, and I remember standing on the edge of the day, or maybe around the penalty spot, and Paddy McBurdy swung the last kick, and 9 times out of 10 it goes over the bar, and it just tailed wide at the end, because if that had went over, like, I just couldn't see us. We were holding on for dear life at that stage, and we thankfully got over the line. I think it might have been 10-9 or 11-10 or something.
Those are the good days, but as the disappointing side of it, Darren, you're going away without, the All-Ireland. It's the obvious one, or is it something you think about a lot? Or
no,
when do you feel you were closest? Like, was it Dublin?
Sure, 2018 was probably the closest.
Right.
Wasn't Tyrone in the semi-final, but I think the most disappointing thing about that was, and like, it's not, we and Tyrone were the same. They had actually a day less to recover. We played our last Super 8s game a week before, so you hadn't a full chance to really prepare and get ready for the game as you knew you had for other big games. Like, we played Tyrone the first round of the championship that year, probably had 4 or 5 weeks maybe to prepare for them after the league. So it was. So it was a rollover from Salt Hill the week before. We'd probably had boots on twice that week, but wouldn't have got a real good session out of it. And that was, you just loved to have been better prepared, fresher, and obviously they were on the same boat, and just come up short in the end up.
You were very close to the top of the Dubs. The extra time one, didn't it go to extra time a couple of years ago?
No, semi-final, the Bears with 6 or 7 in the end up. So it was Dublin. That was 23.
Yeah, sorry.
The
line cut out a wee bit there. Sorry, Darren. The Dublin game, I remember watching it at home. And
I know we were in the mix there.
Really close.
Couple of points with 10 to go, like, but you're real good teams. That's when they push on, and we probably overemphasised the third quarter has been Dublin's main quarter, and we weathered that storm, and they pushed on in the last 10. As I say, we just come up short. We had, for damage probably done in the first half. We had plenty of opportunities and missed them, and should have been further ahead, and didn't get ahead of them. And good teams will take advantage of that, and ultimately punished us in the last 10, and just another one that got away on us.
How much of a kick did you take out of the last day survivals, where you're backed into a corner and you come out the right side? Is that something you really take into the championship? Is it I don't know what the word I'm looking here for, that is just of that never?
No, I think the biggest
or
thing,
is it a negative that you're always sucked in, or what way do you see it?
Not really. We had loads of good years in the league too. So we had like 2, 3 maybe last day. Stay up.
They probably just stick out, I suppose.
Yeah, they stick out. Like in 2018, we finished on 10 points and missed out on head-to-head or score difference getting to a league final. 2015, we were in a league semi-final against Dublin and lost by a point or 2. So we were at the other end of the scale a couple of times as well. But yeah, the big ones staying up now. You went to, it was Dublin and Clonus and a couple of ones, and stayed up twice on 4 points after losing the last day, and some of the results just went in our favour. But we didn't. It wasn't a big emphasis coming into champion. The biggest thing with them was you were probably setting up your pre-season that you knew for the following year that you were in Division 1 was going to be a big factor for keeping management involved at the time and keeping players on board. That you weren't letting things slide completely, because you never knew what was going to happen in the championship. But once you had Division 1 consolidated for the following year, you had a good start on what was going to happen.
And then you had that serious injury against Cavan, and like, you've had loads of things to bounce back from, and you have always bounced back. But that day, I just remember seeing Kieran standing outside the tunnel with your bag, and I just remember thinking, this is looking bad because you were away and to get treated and all the rest. But was that a difficult decision to come back from that to intercounty? You're obviously back on the horse, but was there a moment when you thought about it more than any other time?
Probably thought it was the end of the road, and was at peace with that too. Like if it wasn't fair to come back, sure, it was 37 last year, so it wasn't. Probably from I was 34 or 5, you're just taking each year as it comes, and you were going to be deliberating at the end of the year based on how home life is and what the benefit you were having to the team, if you were having an influence or not. And but here I'd thought long and hard about it last year and got back playing and into the club, and I probably was siding on stepping away, and circumstances changed at home here that I had lost the cows with TB, so ultimately I had no farming for 4 months, so there's a bit of a hole there to be filled, and just felt it was a selfish side of me too. Felt I was still rehabbing from the knee, and I was going to go back and get top class, get the lads, the physios, hands on the whole time, that to give me the best chance to get back into a bit of shape, potentially just thinking of the club this year. But I went by, I knew I'd have an influence off the field with the lads, and I was excited by the new management and Andy coming in and the new rules and that, and good chat with Gabriel, and said I was willing to commit if he'd have me, and he was glad to have me back. But I knew this year was going to be the last.
You had played in that Sigerson team with Andy. Was
he
in that
won a Sigerson with Andy in 08, yeah.
Would you have much contact with him since that?
Not
on?
really on it here after matches of that. You'd quick chat or whatever, or maybe pass congrats to him after Player of the Year or All Stars of that. But not a whole amount. I knew he'd be a great asset to us just with his personality alone, but he exceeded what I thought he'd bring to the table for us. And here, obviously disappointing to lose him now, and we'll have to fill his shoes. But we kind of knew, and he was always honest with us, that if Mayo ever did come calling, that he would be open to going if they wanted him. So here you have to, it's his own home county, and you have to accept that.
And was the rules a factor in your decision at all, Darren? Because as we said before we started recording, Manzi missed out on playing up front in the new rules, whereas there come at a time of your career when you might have been in the middle of the field plucking kickouts whenever they were, as you say, they were starting to go long again. Did you think much about the rules and the decision?
They did. It had an impact too, because you were intrigued about how they were going to work, and you wanted an insight into. I was thinking probably of putting my club head on. Like, you can go in a bit green to the club sometimes and not know. So there was going to be a good glut of inter-county games played before the club would start and get a feel for what was happening. And it was a factor. It wasn't a big factor, but it was something that excited me, and I knew I was going to be in a position to, as long as I kept injury free, to train all the time, and just you could tease things out. And but yeah, definitely did have a factor.
How important was it to get back to Division 1? It's maybe an obvious enough question, but within the camp, was it a must? Was it up there, or Gabriel, new management as well coming into it as well?
It wasn't. We didn't set our stall out real early that was a needs must. Personally, I would have been pushing the boys to get back there. I just think it's better to be playing here. When you're in Division 2, you have a better opportunity of winning games more regularly. But I just think for long-term progression, it's just better for players, and maybe me as a supporter coming down the line, I'd rather be going to Division 1 games too. But it wasn't here after the first 2 games. It would have been a target then. You had 2 out of 2 on the board, and you'd have been looking to push on. Then you seen that the rules were starting to suit our players. We were going to get scores on the board. Obviously, we were conceding too heavily, but it was an area we could work on. But we knew when we were getting the scores that we were going to be in with a good chance.
And just on that, just when it's come into my head, I remember keeping stats a few years ago, but the amount of teams who had scored off advanced marks, and I think Monaghan were top dogs of the advanced mark. And Just wonder, is that something that you brought into your game that bit more, that you kicked it more than any other team, or you seem to get success out of it? That was even before the rules changed.
No, it's like, we used to laugh about this. It was never anything. We would have spoke about it, but it was never anything we really coached or really emphasized. It just, if we would have said if it's on, give it. And I suppose the advanced one was their advantage, where you had Jack and Manzi and a few guys that if they were getting it 35, 40 yards from goal, it was an easy score if you could get it dinked into them. And yeah, we spoke about it, but it was never anything that was rehearsed over and over in training. So it was if you can get it nailed on, take it. But yeah, and there was a seen a stat one time that we were one of the more progressive teams at it, but as I said, it just come from more from chatting. It wasn't pushed overly much.
Is that a case of, in the game, you get the ball, you look up, if the kick's on, you give it, and if not, as simple as that?
Simple as that, yeah. And it's more down to the lads that were running for it, that if they felt there was that 20 or 30 yards of space in front of them to really make the burst for, and that's where they wanted it. So here, it's some days we'd get 2 or 3, and a lot of days we'd get none, but it was something that worked for us in games.
And you said earlier that you were thinking about not going back after the injury, and you had said that you said you wouldn't make any rash decision. Did you was it a difficult decision in the end, because like 206 games, 19 years, you're obviously, it's a big part of your life, the social circle of teammates and all that type of thing, Darren. Was it a difficult one in the end?
It wasn't. I had the decision probably made a long time, but going and actually doing it and ringing Gabriel, just doing it was the biggest thing, because I should have done it a month or 5 weeks ago, but I just wasn't ready to do it. And I just, I had the decision made, but just when I was going to do it was the defining factor, and I just had it in my head that there was a bit of a gap in club football for a couple of weeks, and that just get it done and out of the way.
A couple of wee short ones to finish up. How do you sum up 19 years in a few lines, or a few, like what do you take away the most?
You summed it up. It was half my life. So I wouldn't change anything. So I wouldn't, like, with great crack and friends and memories along the way, even with international rules trips and railway cups and different things. Like as a young fellow growing up, like you're going and traveling to these games and looking at them and watching at them from the other side of the white line, and to be fit to participate in it, then you probably don't fully appreciate it. You maybe only in later years fully appreciate when you're not at it, what you were doing for a prolonged period. But like before I was playing, I wouldn't have missed a Monaghan game. So like it was just, I was probably fulfilling a childhood dream, and when I got the opportunity, I wasn't gonna let it pass me by. So here, the years just sort of went on ahead, and kind of a home board here anyway. So I was living at home and farming at home. So I wasn't been went traveling for a while in 2011. So got that out of the system, and then sure, once I got married and that, you're home to stay at home then, and as the years just passed you by then, and from your 34 or 5, you're probably looking at every year potentially being your last, and I still felt in them latter years that if it was having an influence on and off the field, that if I could offer something, that I'd keep throwing my hand at it. And here it's all down to the balance from home here too. And Orla was very supportive, and every year going back, like I don't feel as if I'm sacrificing anything. Like it's them that are walking around me and my calendar and training schedule all the time. So you have to appreciate that too. And I think it's just time to give a bit back.
And in terms of farming, does that give you a chance to just clear your head every day? You're away from a computer, or you're out and about, and you're in
farming.
The great outdoors, as they talk about.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's as I say, I'm my own boss here at home, and it has its pros and cons, but I'm flexible. The workload does be challenging by times, but plenty of help here from Dad when needs be, and a few friends you get a call every now and again when the pressure's really on, but like I was always fully committed to the Monaghan. Like you can't go in half-minded that you can come and go. So it's kind of, there's more on here at home now. It's just in the last couple of years you're sort of trying to juggle it that bit more. Like when you're traveling, if there's away games or stayovers or training camps or anything, and that was all right when there was only the farm and football, but the family and kids and that now too. It's just there's a bit more juggling in it all, and say the years, I think it's the right time now. I'm 39 in February, so it's time to give a wee bit back and catch up on a bit of farm work maybe.
How would you like to be remembered?
Okay, doesn't bother me. I think it was always consistent. I was never an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 player most days, but I hadn't too many 5 out of 10 games over the years from Monaghan, and like I always went out and give me best and tried my hardest every day. And say, I was always there, and I suppose I was fit to play a lot of the time. Availability, I was lucky enough with injuries over the years, and I suppose the rules probably worked in my favour then too. Whenever I went to midfield and the thing went a bit more defensive, it's worked into my game a bit better than some other players. So you have to be thankful for that as well. But now I don't. I think my consistency over the years wasn't too bad. So it wasn't when you count 206 games. I hadn't too many real bad ones, I don't think.
Is there a toughest opponent that jumps out?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. If they were too good, I was well sheltered from management now that I wouldn't be exposed to the Conor Glasses or Brian Fentons in the latter years, and that have been looking after me in that role, or you'd have had a big wing forward in covering, if you could sit back a sweeper. But I mean, whenever I started and you're slipping in the middle, I remember Mark and Shane Ryan one day in a National League game in 2008 in Dublin, and I thought, geez, I have so much to do to catch up. Mm-hmm. Just the level and power at the time, and Mark Keane O'Sullivan then a few years after that, and just streets ahead again. A couple of good battles with Colin Kavanagh over the years, but me and him to say we only spoke with each other for kickouts because the two of us were dropping back into defence then. And so there was I was well sheltered in the thing later on in the years that I wouldn't get exposed by the more athletic midfielders, but you come up against plenty of good players over the years. A couple of good battles with Rory Kavanagh, Donegal, just when us and Donegal were going head to head from probably 2013 to 2016.
Maybe the hardest question to finish. Who's the best player you played with? Maybe an impossible question.
It is. I hate giving forwards credit, so I do. So Manzi probably slips down the pecking order a wee bit sometimes, but then you when you're watching back in videos there and stuff, you're like, yeah, geez, he was good. I
was listening to the Farney Army last week. They were saying that Desi Moon's point doesn't get forgotten about because of Manzi's point that day against Tyrone.
Or whatever he kicked and lost count halfway through it. Yeah, so as advice, I don't give the forwards too much credit a lot of the time because they think themselves that the ball gets there, but it's not too hard to get it there. But Manzi be up there, but there's plenty of, like I said, a lot of Monaghan players over the years. I don't want to start naming names, but didn't get the credit they deserved on the national scene, or they're playing for us week in, week out. And we knew that any day we were going out, that we had a fighting chance. We were never in a position to not play well, go into a game and not play well and win, I don't think, against anybody. So we knew we always had to be at the peak of our powers, and a lot of the time we were, and there was a good cohort of men that were the backbone of that every day we went
out. When the bus pulls out of Dodge next year, Darren Hughes won't be on it. Monaghan in a good place going forward. You're now Darren Hughes' supporter.
Yeah, no, 100%. Told them that the other day, so told them not to let me down. Yeah, I says that they're in a good place. Like obviously Division 1. I'd be hoping they put an emphasis on trying to stay there. But I've no doubt there's a blend of youth and experience there now, and to back it up, a lot of quality. We've shown at times this year that the football we can play. Probably fell short a bit on squad depth due to injuries at times this year. So, but I've no doubt, knowing what has been said and what the boys are like behind the scenes, that the things in safe hands.
Darren Hughes, absolute pleasure to chat to you this morning. And as I say, the Monaghan fans will remember all the good days, all the memories you brought, and that's all now in the past. And you've left a legacy for the rest of them to follow. So thanks for your time. Congratulations on an unbelievable career. And you can have the weekend off to try and get ready for trying to win a 10th Monaghan championship somewhere along the line. A few steps to go, but that's the next few weeks for you. So thanks a million, Darren.
Well, Michael, thank you.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.